Hello, my name is Kayla Luera, and today I will be presenting my recommendation presentation, and my topic is cruise ships versus airplanes. To start, I want to introduce 3 key criteria that I will be using to compare cruise ships and airplanes. The first criterion that I will be discussing is waste production and environmental effects. The second is cost of production, and the third is passenger safety. Okay, so before I begin discussing that, I want to take a look at how both of these work. So to start off, airplanes have turbines, and how that works is air passes into the turbine, 10% enters directly into the core of the turbine, and 90% goes around the core. So the 10% that enters the core enters a compressor where it is mixed with the fuel, and later on it is ignited in the combustor. That hot gas mixture then leaves the turbine, and that is what causes it to spin. And the forces that come into play that keep the airplane in the air are lift, thrust, weight, and drag. So lift obviously lifts up the airplane, weight pulls down the airplane to earth, drag slows down the airplane, and thrust pushes the airplane forward. So how does a cruise ship work? So the cruise ship can use one of 3 engines: a diesel engine, a diesel electric engine, or a gas turbine. The way that a diesel engine works is that the diesel fuels crankshafts and pistons that are connected to the propeller, and that is what causes it to spin. And a diesel electric engine actually uses generators that then spin the propeller. And a gas turbine works in a similar way that diesel electric engines do, but they are better for the environment. And the force that comes into play with cruise ships is a force called buoyancy, which means that the density of the object floating in the water is less than the density of the water. Okay, so before I begin, I want to take a closer look at my criteria. And the first one is waste production. I will be talking about production produced per passenger on a typical trip in gallons. And the cost of production, I will be looking at the overall cost of the airplane and cruise ship and dividing it by their mass to look at how much the cost per pound is for each. And the last one I will be talking about is safety of the passengers, and that includes the safety practices that both airplanes and cruise ships have in place, as well as mortality rates. Okay, so here I have a table showing the type of waste produced, the amount in gallons. I have the contents of the different types of waste, and then I also have the environmental effects. The biggest waste producer or waste being produced on cruise ships is the only one I will be discussing, and that is gray water, and that comes from sinks, showers, and the galley, and it contains harmful things like detergent. But to summarize the harmful effects of each of these different types of wastes, it can cause neurotoxicity, other harmful effects, and it can even cause things like liver failure if that waste is when that waste is introduced into water streams. It can also have harmful effects on the aquatic life. And there are different types of waste that have regulations, but even when regulated, it still has harmful effects. So here are the different types of waste produced on airlines, and here I have the number of gallons that a typical passenger produces on a flight of on a typical average length flight, which is 0.3775 gallons per passenger per typical flight, for an average flight. So here I have the comparison of different ways. So here On this side, I added again the number for airlines, and on this side, I have the number of waste produced on cruise ships, and I have the formula up here that I used to calculate these numbers. So the number for me was given, or for airlines was given directly, but the cruise ship numbers I had to calculate. And also I looked up different average length flights, and they can either range from 3 to 12 hours. So I gave the numbers here for cruise ships for those times, but you can still see that the number of waste produced per passenger for 3, 6, and 12 hours is still greater than the amount of waste produced on airlines per passenger. So which is the better option in terms of waste production? Well, the answer is clear. It's airlines. So the next criterion that I will be discussing is the cost of production. So to make things easier, I used two of the most popular cruise lines, Royal Caribbean and Carnival, because they have the most ships out of any other cruise line, and which provides for more data. And then I will be also using the most popular aircraft, the Boeing 737, again, which was easy to get data from, or to find data of. So here I have the cost of production per Royal Caribbean, Carnival, and Boeing, and you can see that the cost of to produce a cruise ship per pound is significantly less than the cost of production to produce an airplane per pound. So which is the better option in terms of cost production? Again, the answer is clear: cruise ships. So as far as safety practices, they are very similar. Cruise ships have a muster drill in place, which talks about, which is a 30 to 60 minute presentation. And in the muster drill, they discuss where the lifeboats are, where to go in case of an emergency, where your life jackets are. And on airplanes, they have announcements before the plane starts, and typically you don't see the announcements during as much unless you have turbulence, and announcements after are just to help airplane passengers board off the plane easily. So the announcements in the beginning are typically in case of an emergency, like the position that you should take in case there's a crash, and then there's a special seat, an emergency exit that they discuss with the passengers, and also in case of an emergency. So the mortality rate for a cruise ship is very low at 0.08, and this is the percentage out of 100. And then the airline mortality rate is 0.8, and you can clearly see that the mortality rate for airplanes is higher by 10%, or by 10 times. So which is the better option in terms of safety? Cruise ships. So conclusions and recommendation. Well, out of the three criteria, cruise ships did best in two of those categories. So the clear recommendation here is cruise ships. It won in cost of production per pound, and it also won in safety in terms of passengers. And the only category that it did not do well in was the waste production and environmental effects. So here are my references. Thank you.